So let us continue our lecture with the four types of tissues in human body. So if we talk about the human body plan, starting with the definition of tissue. A tissue is a collection of cells that have a similar structure and work together to perform a particular function. So we have a group of cells having similar structure joined together to do what? Work together to perform a specific function. And we have four major types of tissues, starting with the muscular tissue, muscle tissue, the nervous tissue, the epithelial tissue, and the connective tissue. Let's see what are these. So the four types of tissues, including the epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscle tissue, and nervous tissue. Starting from the epithelial tissue, it covers the exposed surfaces and lines the body cavities. The exposed surfaces, what are the exposed surfaces of the body? When you look at the human body, you can see the skin. The outermost layer of the skin is covered by epithelial tissue, is composed of epithelial tissue. The outermost exposed surfaces of human body are made up of cells, and these cells are working together to make epithelial tissue. And the body cavities are lined by epithelial tissue. For example, if we talk about GI system, we have cavities, we have hollow tubes, and in the innermost layer of these cavities or the tubes are lined by the epithelial tissue. The esophagus, the stomach, all the inner linings are composed of epithelial tissue. So epithelial tissue, epi means above or upon. So epithelial tissue, how we will remember is it lines the outermost and it lines the inner cavities, and it is present at the outermost exposed surfaces. So outermost and innermost will be the epithelial tissue. Example, the inner lining of the digestive system. Okay. Next, we go to the connective tissue. The name suggests it will connect. It will connect. So the connective tissue protects, supports, and interconnects body parts and organs. So the main function of connective tissue is, what is connective tissue? It is protective, it is supportive, and it will interconnect the body parts. Okay, it can be either solid, example is bone. So bone is a connective tissue, is a solid type of connective tissue. It can be liquid, such as blood. Yes, blood is a liquid type of connective tissue, whereas it can be intermediate, which means it can be in between the solid and liquid state. Intermediate, not so hard, not so liquid, such as cartilage. Yes, this is also connective tissue. As you remember, bone has one, and 1 means type 1 cartilage tissue. Then we have cartilage as cartilage, and it has 2 means type 2 connective tissue. Bone has 1 type 1 connective tissue, and cartilage has 2 type 2 connective tissue. So this is a mnemonic we will have later in the class. The third type of tissue is muscle tissue, which will produce movement. In the skeletal system, the musculoskeletal system will cause movement of the muscles and will produce locomotion, will be helpful in the movement of the body from one place to another. Locomotion. Smooth muscles, especially in the GI tract, will help us to do the peristalsis. It's also helpful in producing movement. Peristalsis means the movement of food, so it also is helping in producing movement. And then we have cardiac muscles in the heart, which when they move can pump the blood out of the heart. So these are the 3 types of muscle tissue. And now finally we have 4th type of tissue in the human body. So the first was epithelial, the second was connective, the third was muscle, and muscle had three types: skeletal muscle, smooth, and cardiac muscle. Finally, we have fourth type of tissue in human body, which is nervous tissue. And nervous tissue will conduct impulses for internal communication. What is internal communication mean? Is internal communication inside the body. You feel thirsty, you want to drink water, internal communication. Yes, GI tract needs to peristalse the food, move the food towards the lower side, from the esophagus to stomach, and from stomach to small intestine to large, and then rectum. It is all communicated internally via the nervous system, and nervous system conducts these messages with the help of impulses, nerve impulses. And nervous tissue is composed of brain, spinal cord, and the peripheral nerves, which we will study under nervous tissue or nervous system in systemic anatomy. So these are the examples of the nervous tissue. As you can see, under nervous tissue, it is in the brain, spinal cord, and nerves. And muscle tissue, they have three types of muscle tissue: cardiac, smooth, and skeletal muscle. Epithelial lining, I told you, the outermost and the innermost. These are the examples: lining of GI tract organs and other hollow organs. And this is the inner lining. And if you talk about the outermost, then it becomes the skin is the outermost layer, and the epidermis has the cell. And these cells are making epithelial tissue. The cells are joined together to make epithelial tissue. Finally, connective tissue connects the body. If we talk about bone, it's type 1 connective tissue with bone, and then tendon. Yes, and then cartilage is cartilage, type 2 connective tissue. Then we have fat, then we have blood, then we have reticular fibers, reticular cells. All of these are examples of connective tissue. Again, example, nervous tissue in the brain, spinal cord. Then we have connective tissue, very good examples. We have blood as example of connective tissue, adipose or fat cells. We have cartilage or cartilage. Car2, I say 2 because I want you to remember it is type 2 connective tissue. We have different types of connective tissue. Type 1 is blood, type 1 is bone, type 2 is cartilage. Then in pathology or later in physiology, we will study about the types of connective tissue. Here the blood, adipose tissue or fat, cartilage, loose connective tissue or areolar tissue, bone, and dense tendons. Yes, are the types of connective tissue. On the right side, we have epithelial tissue types, where we have pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium, squamous epithelium, simple cuboidal, simple columnar, stratified squamous types of epithelium, which we will study under histology. And then finally we have a muscle tissue, which has three types: cardiac, smooth, and skeletal. So these are the four types of tissues of human body: nerve tissue, connective tissue, epithelial tissue, and muscle tissue. Again, an example, if you talk about, for example, if you take this part of your body, you can find all of the tissues. For example, adipose tissue as connective tissue, then cartilage also as connective tissue, and then we have bone as connective tissue, we have blood in the blood vessels as connective tissue, we have loose areolar connective tissue under the skin. So we have skin, and under the skin, under subcutaneous, sub means under, cutaneous means skin. So subcutaneous fat is also example of connective tissue. And then we have fibrous connective tissue, which will make the tendon. As you know, the tendon is a connective tissue, a fibrous connective tissue, which will join the muscles with the bone. Muscles attach themselves to bone with the help of tendon, and tendon is a fibrous type of connective tissue. Now, if we talk about three types of muscle tissue, so we already know there are four types of tissues in human body: epithelial, muscle, nervous, and connective tissue. Now, if we talk about the muscular tissue, we have three types of muscular tissue: smooth muscle, cardiac muscle, skeletal muscle. Let's see the difference between them. Smooth muscles are spindle shaped. Spindle shape means both ends are pointy. They have a nucleus. Uninucleus. Uninucleus means per fiber or in one cell there will be only one nucleus. One nucleus. Uni means one, nucleated mean nucleus, and fibers. Fibers mean cells, myofibers. So in one cell of the smooth muscle we have one nucleus. Occurs in the walls of internal organs and is involuntary. This smooth muscle is spindle shaped, has spindle shaped cells. The smooth muscle is a tissue which is composed of cells, and these cells are spindle shaped, pointy on the both sides. They are non-striated. There are no dark and light bands. Striations are created by the dark and light bands. There are no dark and light bands in the smooth muscles, so that's why they are non-striated. And then they are uninucleated, and they are found in the walls of internal organs. Internal organs also known as viscera. For example, smooth muscles are found in the stomach, in the esophagus. Yes? And they are involuntary. They are not in our direct control. Now, if we look at the cardiac muscle, they are striated. Striated means they have light and dark band, light and dark band. Actin, myosin, light and dark band. And they are branch. They are branch. They are branch, and but they are similar to smooth muscles that they have uninucleated fibers, that per fiber or per cardiac myocyte we have one nucleus, and they occur in the walls of heart, and they are also involuntary. Now, if we go towards the skeletal muscle, they are striated, same as like the cardiac muscle. They have light and dark band. They are tubular, but they are multinucleated. They are multinucleated fibers. So one cell or one fiber or one myocyte of skeletal muscle tissue will have more than one nucleus attached to it, and they are usually attached to the skeleton or the bone, and they are in our control, which means they are voluntary. Now, if we compare the two types of muscles, suppose smooth muscle and cardiac muscles, they are also known, they are uninucleated, they are, so if we are comparing smooth muscle and cardiac muscle, they are uninucleated. Smooth muscle are uninucleated, cardiac muscles are also uninucleated. They are involuntary, and cardiac muscle are also involuntary. But how the cardiac muscles are attached are similar to the skeletal muscle, that the cardiac muscles are striated, whereas skeletal muscles are also striated. So the cardiac muscles are striated and the skeletal muscles are also striated. Okay, what else? But how they are different is that smooth muscle and cardiac muscles are uninucleated and involuntary, whereas skeletal muscles are multinucleated and they are voluntary. They are in our control. Okay, these are some of the differences of the three types of muscle. Again, we have some difference. This is a very good table which help you to memorize the differences. Fibers mean cell. The skeletal muscle fibers are striated, tubular, multinucleated. Cardiac muscles are also striated, branched, but smooth muscles are non-striated, whereas smooth muscles and cardiac muscles are uninucleated, whereas skeletal muscles are multinucleated. Skeletal muscles are voluntary, smooth and cardiac muscles are involuntary, and cardiac muscles are found in the walls of heart, smooth muscles are found in the walls of internal organs, whereas skeletal refer to skeleton. Skeletal muscles are attached to skeleton with the help of tendons. skeletal muscles are attached to the skeleton with the help of tendons. What are tendons? Tendons are the fibrous type of connective tissue. Okay, I hope you remember, by this you can remember some of the differences between muscle. Again, we have a very good diagram explaining the differences between the muscle tissues. Now, if we talk about individual muscle tissue, we have some coverings of muscle tissue. Now, starting from the bone, the muscle is attached, the muscle belly is attached. So this is the belly. The thick part of the muscle is belly, which has a lot of fibers, and the belly is attached to the bone with the help of tendon, which is the fibrous types of connective tissue. And the outermost layer of the muscle is known as epimysium. Epi means upon or outermost or at the surface. Peri means surrounding and endo means inside. Yes, epi is the outermost, and then we have peri. Peri means surrounding or around, and then endo means inside. What do you mean by mysium? Mysium comes from muscle. Yes. So epi is outermost or upon or surrounding. Mysium is the unit of muscle or centimeter of muscle. Epimysium means outermost or covering the outermost layer of the muscle. So it is present on the outermost side of the muscle surrounding the whole belly. Yes, inside the epimysium we have a lot of fascicles. What are fascicles? Fascicles are bundles of muscle fibers or muscle cells. And muscle fascicles have a lot of muscle fibers or muscle cells. And each fascicle is covered by perimysium. Perimysium surrounds the muscle fascicles. So outermost was epimysium, and each epimysium covers a lot of fascicles, and fascicles are individually covered by perimysium, and each fascicle contains lot of muscle fiber, and this muscle fiber will be covered by endomysium. As you can see, the perimysium wraps the muscle fascicles, and endomysium is between the muscle fibers, is surrounding the individual muscle fibers, and it is, by the way, connected all the way. Yes. And in each, so outermost layer of muscle fiber is endomysium. Endomysium is covering the individual muscle fibers, and in each muscle fiber we have a lot of strands. These strands. Yes. Again, this is tendon and this is skeletal muscle. The belly of muscle is covered by epimysium, and in epimysium and in this belly we have a lot of muscle fascicles, and each fascicle is covered by perimysium, and each fascicle has a lot of muscle fibers and individual muscle fiber, and each muscle fiber is surrounded by endomysium. And if we go inside the endomysium, we have a lot of strands. These are known as myofibrils. Myofibrils. The myocyte or muscle fiber, also known as muscle cell, also known as myocyte. Myo means muscle, myo, myo means muscle, and cyte, cyt, cyte means cell. So myocyte means muscle cell or muscle fiber, and each myocyte will has a lot of strands known as fibril. Myo mean muscle, fibril mean fibers, muscle strands, muscle fibers, myofibril. So from the outermost, again we have skeletal muscle belly covered by epimysium, and each epimysium will have a lot of muscle fascicle. Each muscle fascicle is surrounded by perimysium, and each muscle fascicle will have a lot of myocyte muscle fibers. or muscle cell, and each muscle cell or muscle fiber myocyte is covered by endomysium, is surrounded by endomysium, and then each muscle fiber inside will have myofibril. Now I want to give you a concept of sarcolemma or sarcoplasm. So inside a muscle fascicle there are a lot of muscle fibers, and in muscle fibers we have a lot of myocytes. Each myocyte, the cell membrane of myocyte is known as sarcolemma. So we have a lot of muscle myocytes, muscle cell, and each muscle cell will have a lot of myofibrils. So this cell membrane, which is directly surrounding the individual myocyte, is sarcolemma, whereas endomysium will be here. So there is a difference between endomysium, which is surrounding the myocyte, and sarcolemma. Sarcolemma is direct cell membrane of muscle cell. Yes, myocyte. So the cell membrane of myocyte is also known as sarcolemma. And muscle fibers inside a muscle fascicle are surrounded by endomysium. Yes, and the cytoplasm, if the cell membrane of muscle fiber was known as sarcolemma, then the cytoplasm of the muscle fiber can be known as sarcoplasm. And the reticulum, the endoplasmic reticulum, will be known as sarcoplasmic reticulum. Yes? Now we go to the 11 organ systems in human body, also known as systemic anatomy. So systemic anatomy is the anatomy which covers the system